Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Bryan W. Adams.
Thank you so much for joining today's Inspire podcast. We have such a special guest today, that a special guest who really holds a special place in my heart and really the history of integrity. And it's my good friend, Bob Grannan. In the Broadway show, Hamilton, there's a song where Alexander Hamilton sings and raps about wanting to be in the room where it happens. Well, Bob was in the room where integrity happened. And in fact, if it weren't for Bob Grannan, I don't know that there would have ever been an Integrity Marketing Group. And he was actually in the first meeting that we ever had at Integrity. He was in that meeting because of his incredible career that he had built up to that point and has continued to that day. He spent decades at some of the top insurance companies in the nation developing and marketing a wide range of senior products. And later on, he was president and CEO of Grannan Enterprises, and really built a great consultancy business on ways to help people in the insurance business continue to grow. And then after all of that, you never burn a bridge in this world because you never know where it's going to all come back to. And then he joined Integrity and now helps lead our life and final expense and annuity business here at Integrity. I was personally thrilled whenever Bob decided to join Integrity because he's simply one of the most dependable and multifaceted leaders in the insurance business today. And I'm very glad and excited for all of you to have a chance to get to know Bob today on the Inspire podcast. So, Bob, thank you so much for joining us. I am just so excited to have you on here today.
Thanks, Bryan. It's just a terrific opportunity and has been so much fun learning more and more about our partners and the people that make up this great organization.
Well, we've got some amazing people, don't we? I mean, just like Julie, just hearing her talking about Stacey Anderson and all the different people here at Integrity, that it's one thing to have a large organization, but man, we are a deep organization. The talent pool here at Integrity, I would put up against any company in the world, period, regardless of industry, because of just all of the amazing people who we've been able to assimilate together. And Mike White said this really well to me one day. He said, it's like we have an amazing band where one guy may be really good at playing the guitars, another guy good at playing the drums, another guy may be playing the fiddle, or as Northerners might call it, the violin. And then you got a guy who's singing, you got a lead singer, you may have backup vocalists, you got a guy running the soundboard. But individually, they're all good, but when you pull them all together, they can do something really special. And it has been fun to watch and see how we've done that. And it's you're part of that, Bob, and we are so excited to have you join us. So there's a lot that you and I can talk about. In fact, as we were kind of joking there, I mean, we could make this a whole week because you and I go back so far. And I'm not sure exactly where we should start, but we might as well start at kind of the beginning. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got, just a little bit about yourself and then how you got in the insurance business?
Sure. Yeah, I, like so many people on these calls, began life in a very modest background. My family, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were fortunate. We had food, we had love, we had a roof over our heads. My dad worked in a factory for Whirlpool, assembling refrigerators, and my mom was a cook at the local elementary school. I'm the fifth of 5 boys and have a younger sister. Thank God for siblings, as one of my older brothers, Steve, actually saved my life when I was 5 from drowning, pulled me out of a lake. He says he thought about it for a second to wonder whether or not Mom would miss the last of the boys or not, but fortunately he had good sense to grab a hold of me and pull me out.
Wow.
But I figured out early on, I wanted to do something different. I wanted a little bit more in life and to have a chance to explore more. And so the first time I had a chance to make some money, I was all over it. And that job was counting fishing worms for 50 cents an hour. And I'd work 1 or 2 hours a night, a couple nights a week during school. And that was enough money to pay for my school lunch. And it was just one less thing that Mom and Dad had to worry about paying for. So began to learn the economics and contributing to the economic system out there, so to speak. But then I had this first love of basketball, being the 5th of 5 boys. You were just another Grannan. And I said, I got to do something to help myself distinguish. And at the time, they said I was too short. My nicknames as a kid were Squirt, Shorty, and those were some of the nicer names. But I played, got pretty good at it, got to high school, and then got a couple setbacks, got cut my sophomore and junior year, but then made the team my senior year. And between my junior year in high school and sophomore year in college, I grew 4 inches. All of a sudden, the height came to me. It was just a little bit late. But that gave me a chance to earn a scholarship and go on to play Division II basketball, which was just a delightful time. And the older I get, the better I was. Those kind of statistics kind of change as you get down the road a bit. But the game taught me a lot of lessons, many of which just continue today, and not the least of which was, setting goals and just simply not giving up. And it taught me not only the meaning, but the importance of team. And I guess I'm always been more of a team sport person, because I've always felt that the best way to celebrate a victory is to do it with teammates.
Man, I couldn't agree more with that. So this is another proof that people that have gone on to have incredible success had incredible challenges as they got started, and people that just didn't give up, even if you were too short. Now, how tall are you today, or how tall are you at your height?
At 6'4" was my height at the peak of that. I think I've started getting shorter as I age.
I wasn't going to say that, Bob, but you know where I was going. So with all with all those experiences, it helps you have enormous success in the business of working with team. You can't do any of this by yourself. I mean, right? I mean, it is.
Exactly.
It is. You've got, and honestly, it's no fun doing it by yourself. It's more fun being on a team and being able to rally together and pull through together. Like I said before, you were in the room where it happened. And what I mean by that is, whenever we first started Integrity, in 2004, you and I met for the first time, and the idea was you were working for a company called Monumental Life, Transamerica. It's called Transamerica today, holding company Aegon, and it was the first A+ rated insurance company that had ever come into the final expense market. And you guys were going to you wanted to go national all day one. And we started working together and really had this opportunity to, we were trying to get the exclusive rights to this product, and trying to make sure that we were able to put this whole thing together. And you and I worked so diligent, Tom and Mike and others, we were working so diligently on putting this deal together. And I remember at one point, you and I've always had a real honest relationship, always pretty direct. And you said, listen, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you guys the exclusive deal. We'll give you the top deal, but we're not going to give you the exclusive deal because you're too regional. You guys aren't big enough, and we need to go national day one. And I remember the gut punch. I remember right where I was sitting in your office in Baltimore, and you were explaining that to me. And I remember saying, I've got this idea. I've already had this idea of if we could create this national network. We didn't even know what to call it at that point. But I've got this idea that if I can get everybody to all work together, we could all accomplish more. And this whole idea of kind of rising tide raises all boats. And this was probably by this time it's probably 2005, because we'd spent about a year working on everything together for free, by the way. Like we were all, nobody was making any money. We were all just grinding through this, put this together. And I said, I got this idea. Would you before you make this decision, will you give me a minute to figure this out? And I remember you saying, I'll give you 2 weeks. And if you can come up with that, that's a great concept. If you can come up with that idea, then we'll talk. But otherwise, we're going to keep moving forward. Do you remember those early days?
Oh wow, it seems so vivid. And of course, as you talk, the dust goes off those memories and becomes clearer. Leading up to this, and I don't know if I'd ever shared this with you before, but I vetted over 40 different distributors trying to identify who we thought we wanted to do business with. And it was difficult to say no, because on one hand, it would have been simpler to work a national deal. You had such a big dream. I'm sitting there going, okay, does this fellow really know what he's doing? But I had this idea.
People ask that all the time. Hey, by the way, people still ask that all the time.
Well, but you were believable, so you kept me connected. And I've since, as I've heard your story where you were borrowing money from Tom and Mike. I don't think I ever told you, when I agreed to take the assignment, I took a 25% cut in pay. And they said, oh, well, you can make it up by getting bonuses as this business grows. So I was betting on this deal. I was betting on this deal in a big way. And so we, got to meet you, Tom, and Mike. And it was, it comes back to this team thing. Be selective on who you're around. And you guys were as instrumental in creating the product. I try to take credit for it all the time, but you were co-developers of this product. You were co-developers of the processes that we thought would give a good agent experience. You were there at every step of the way as we dug through this. And as you made that case, and I say people today, it's kind of funny. I think I just realized this in the past year or two. I truly believe we changed the industry. The industry was not doing what we were doing, and we saw people follow us tremendously. So we got to that exclusive deal, and I said yes. And then I had another sales deal. I had to sell it to the leadership at Monument Life. They thought maybe I'd gotten some kind of piece of the action, so I was trying to sell the deal on your behalf. And I said, no. I just think these are the kind of guys can help us get to where we want to be. I think you may recall, we also had code names for the various finalists that were potential distributors for us. And at that time, it was Premier before Integrity emerged. And the code name for Premier was DOT, D-O-T, short for Dorothy. But DOT in Greek means gift from God. Who would have thought that some of that would have been the way things emerged as you were building this value proposition of carrier access, lead programs, agent training, and other tools that are going to help people leverage their business. It was a great dream. It became a reality. It was designed, and gosh, 15 years later, here we are. It's an overnight success.
Yeah, it has been an overnight success, as some people like to say. I remember when you told us, hey guys, unfortunately you're not going to be able to do this exclusive for us. We're just not going to get by, and we're going to have to get other people in here. And I do think we changed the industry. I think we're changing it still. But part of it I'm so proud of is that original product we created with you in Monumental, which is called Transamerica now. It's Transamerica's Final Expense product. We've only seen one real change to that product in 2010, and that product has stood the test of time, and just continued. Like, we built it the right way. And I remember talking the whole time to you about, we got to have integrity in this process. We've got to have integrity in commission levels and the way that we do business. It's got to work for the carrier first, because if it doesn't, then it won't work for everybody else for the long term. And I remember just spending so much time and energy on that. And when you said, listen, we're not going to be able to give you the exclusive, and I said, well, I've got this concept. We've been working on this idea of us being able to work a national network. Would you give me, you gave me 2 weeks, and I remember we ran around the country and we talked to a bunch of other competitors, frankly, and said, if we all kind of stop fighting each other, stop beating each other up, we can all do more. And then we met. There was a group of us that met in Kansas City, and it was the central kind of location to get people into. We met in this like Ramada Inn, I think it was, or Radisson or something.
I think it was, yeah.
We meet in this little hotel in this room. I can still see it right now. I can smell it. And we sat around this conference room and we talk. And man, I was a kid with a dream, and we were just talking about the concepts. If we could do this, like, what could we do, right? And we could help. And we've already gotten this many people who said that they would join us if we could create it. And then the question was, well, what would you even call this thing? And there's probably 6 or 7 people. And I joke about this, about you were in the room where it happened. So if anybody knows Alexander Hamilton, and if you've ever seen, just Google Hamilton play. It's an incredible play, and about Alexander Hamilton, who really created the financial system of the U.S. And really has done. I mean, it's what makes the financial system of the entire country. And it's a Broadway play, but one of the songs in it was in the room where it happened. And when I was watching this play, it's funny. There's a lot of rap in Alexander Hamilton, or in Hamilton. I didn't know that. I went to a play. My good friend Steve Young, chairman of our board, I was meeting Steve in New York. And so Steve, I see him the next morning, and Steve goes, "Hey, what'd you think about the play?" And I go, "Dude, I had no idea it was rap." And he was like, "Where in the hell have you been? Like, what are you talking about? Like, everybody knows that's rap." Well, I didn't know anything about it. So for those of you guys who don't know much about it, Google it. But there's this song that talks about in the room where it happened. And Bob, you were in the room where it happened. You were in there. I had you come in because I wanted to convince you, like, we could pull this off. And so, Bob, we were in the room where it happened. And since I know you and Deborah went to see Hamilton last December when we were in New York, I thought you might get a kick out of that. But we were in this room in this Ramada Inn talking about a dream, about this idea, if we could create kind of the future. And you and I were joking about this. I found the original kind of marketing plan for integrity. And it's amazing how much of that we have created. And we wouldn't be where we are today as a business if it weren't for you giving us that chance. And I remember sitting around that table and us talking about you, because you said, "What are you guys going to call this thing?" You remember that? You said, "What? Okay, if you create this network, if I bet my career," I think you said this even, "if I bet my career on you guys and you guys go and do this, what are you going to call it?" And we were like, I remember looking around like, "Yeah, what are we going to call this?" And we started writing up like names on the chalkboard. of saying like what, or the whiteboard, different name ideas. And you remember we were kind of going back and forth and trying to figure that out. And it's amazing, like us, like just trying to make this up while you're in the room where it happened.
Yeah, one of the names came up was Monumental, and I said, I'm not sure that's the name you want to use, even though you work for the company Monumental. It's going to be broader than that.
Yeah, you helped us even expand our ideas. And I remember Mike Wingate, we kept on talking about we need to have integrity. We need to have integrity in everything we do. We want to make sure people know about integrity. And I remember Mike Wingate saying, guys, why don't we just call it Integrity Marketing Group? And we all kind of looked around, and everybody was like, that's it. That's exactly right. And I remember even as we partnered with Steve Young, Steve even saying at one point, he's like, okay, hold on. Your name is Integrity. Are you sure? Like, people hold you to the name that you pick. Like, you have a name that's Integrity. That's a pretty bold statement. Are you ready for people to hold you to that? And I said, that's what we expect. We want people to hold us to having integrity in all that we do. And that's where we went on to, you gave us that opportunity. And then we went on to try to promote that. In those early days, man, it wasn't, that was really the only deal Integrity had in the early days, right? In 06, it was the only deal that we had. So you had Todd Fincher working with us. You had all these other guys. We're going around trying to get people to sell. And then there was this thing called Medicare Advantage that popped up. And it was, we had some tough times in the early days, didn't we, my friend?
Oh, we did. Medicare Advantage came out of nowhere, and we saw a lot of the industry turn toward it. We couldn't get their attention with final expense, so we had this little bit of a spinning our wheels there for a while, and we were just trying to find a way to how do we get this going. I was getting a lot of attention from Monumental saying, okay, you're the guy that sold us on going exclusive with this group, and this group's not doing much. So Bryan and I were on the phone debating what can we do to put some energy into this. And it's terrible today. I can't remember the exact issue, but we were on a call one Friday afternoon, Bryan. I suspect you remember this. And we got into, I'm going to call it a heated conversation. Maybe it was just extremely passionate. But when I hung up the phone, I was furious. I was so mad at you. I couldn't see straight. And I walk out of my office, start walking down the hallway, and I go, wait a minute. I'm not mad at Bryan. I'm mad at the situation. I cannot go into the weekend angry at this guy. So I walk back in my office. I call you up, and of course, I'm sure you see the phone ringing, and you're kind of like, why in the world is he calling me back? You pick up the phone. I said, Bryan, I can't end the call this way. I'm not mad at you. We're both trying to figure something out here. But I just can't go into a weekend being angry. I said, we're in the same boat together, and we've got to find a way to get through this. And I think it was really a seminal moment in our relationship to where this whole idea of saying we got to have locked arms and only together can we figure something out here. It was just a powerful time that I will never forget.
Yeah, I remember that call well. I remember right where I was sitting. When you called me back, I can't remember what the subject was, but we were pissed off, man. We were going at it, and it was such a valuable lesson. And Bob, thank you for that lesson that you helped teach me at an early age in my career of going, hey, you can deal with people respectfully, and you can be mad at a situation, but you don't have to make it personal, right? And there's so much you can miss out on when you burn bridges, because there's so many massive opportunities on the other side. And the truth is, we've been spending. You can spend so much of your time fighting each other, or fighting companies, and fighting whatever, when we need to spend most of our time and energy working on how do you grow and how do you focus on growth. And I'm really glad we were able to work through that issue. It deepened our relationship, right? I mean, it didn't it didn't just save our relationship. I think it deepened it, and it taught me so much of how to deal with those type of situations, and really.
For me, I think it was an example of. It was an example for me. It was obvious. I hate to admit it, but my ego got in the way. I wanted to be right. I didn't want to have the right answer. I wanted to be right. And it's a perfect example. We talk about leaving our ego at the door and addressing the issues. My ego got in the way, and it was a humbling experience to realize, Bob, your ego's in the way because you think you ought to be smarter than this young guy that's got red hair and has all kind of enthusiasm. And it was my ego.
Wow. Well, ego's the most expensive thing in the world, and I appreciate you teaching me to leave mine at the door as well through that. And then you and I mean, we've worked together in different capacities for a long time, and then when we were continuing to grow, whenever you left Transamerica, I was like, man, we got to figure out how to work together. And I can't tell you how thankful I am that we ran back together. And again, I mean, I think this is just such a great example. There are times that you can burn a bridge, and like if you burn that bridge, man, it's hard as hell to ever go back across it, or maybe you won't ever cross it again, because it's hard to rebuild. And the fact that we were able to say, okay, hold on, let's work on this. And one of our core values here at Integrity is respect. Like, how do we respectfully deal with this, and how do we respectfully get through this? And thank God we were able to do that. And so looking back here at Integrity, you heard this dream, right? You were in the room where it happened with this dream about
That's right.
We want to create, and we set out that dream pretty clearly of this is what we want to create. And then as you look back on it, it's amazing kind of where we are and where we're going. Wouldn't you agree?
It is. There's a degree of it almost being eerie, Brian. As you said, we stayed in touch. I had a lot of respect for how you and the other leaders ran the business, Mike and Tom, and just how you had grown the business. And I was so impressed. I'd gotten to know over the years people like, Tim McCoy and Alan Town and Frank Boos and Sean Mike and all these other folks who are now part of the organization and I know I leave people out with Craig and others who I just said, these are the kind of folks you want to be associated with. So I kept watching as this business was growing, and we get in touch and bumped into each other actually in Hawaii on a carrier trip. And it was kind of funny during that trip. My son, Lucas, actually spent a little time with you. We get back to the hotel room that night. My son says, Dad, you really need to call this guy and you need to find a way to work with him. Well, I didn't necessarily have Lucas on my top advisor list, but he was one that had some pretty good insight. I said, you ought to talk. So we stayed in touch, and we called you up and what's going on. You gave me this invitation to come out to Dallas and visit and talk about what you're doing. And I walk in the door and I see these walls with core values on it, and I have a flashback of thinking of the principles that you had created for integrity marketing back in 2005. And the similarities are just amazing. Matter of fact, as we were talking the other day, you were able to pull out the document, sent me a copy, and it may be one of these things we ought to share with others, because I go down through it, and it is just eerie how what you are doing today, what this organization is doing today, is so consistent with the way you set the plans, the initial plans back in, 2004 and 2005. It's wonderful to see how that's grown, and the fact that you see these principles. In many cases, you say, oh, can a business be successful operating under these principles? People can talk these principles, but can you be a profitable business under these principles? And I see this and I go, oh my God, I think I'm now observing one who's done that. They've made this a reality. They've made it a reality, and it is something to be proud of and something to be really a part of, and truly, we're in the room together, and this is where it's happening, and it's an exciting time for us.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We are only getting started. It is true. It's been important, especially when you name your company Integrity, to make sure that you can never compromise on those things. And those principles, if you have a true principle, it should never change, right? And that was part of what we set up, and a part of our thought process in those early days was, how do you create something that can outlast us, right? Outlast each one of us, and continue on indefinitely. But you got to build it on bedrock and build it on principles such as integrity and family and service and respect and partnership. And that's what drives our team and all of us, is how do we live out those principles and those core values so that everybody receives, really understands that, lives up to those, held accountable to those, but also can grow with those core values, which is just so vital and important. And Bob, listen, on behalf of everybody here in Integrity, we would not be here today if you wouldn't have. So a lot of what we hear is that, a lot of the stories are I was told no, and I just didn't give up, and I was told I couldn't do that. I was told I wasn't good enough to make the team, right? And I went and I worked hard to make it. We were told we weren't big enough and we were too regionalized by you. And if it weren't for that moment, we would have never been forced out of our comfort zone and create this business that's now Integrity. And so I want to tell you, thank you for telling us no back then. And thank you for telling us and really forcing us to think bigger, because that's what's created this entire concept of integrity and where we're going today. And we are incredibly proud to be your partner and incredibly proud of where we're going together. And we are truly just getting started. So thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, man.
Well, it's kind of interesting looking back. It was brilliant to challenge you that way, because you created a dream, created a process to build an organization I wanted to see us have and to create in this industry. This industry has meant a lot to me, continues to drive what I do. And as recent as when Joe Jordan was on the call here a few weeks ago, I happened to listen to a podcast of his or on YouTube when he was addressing the $1 Million Roundtable, and I'm sitting there listening to this on my cell phone. Deborah's sitting across me, says, "What are you listening to?" And she comes over and she starts listening to this with me, and she notices I'm crying. And I said, this is why I haven't retired. We're in this business because we're making a difference. This is the opportunity we have. This is what drives us, and it's just such a great place to be when we're, as was said in Hamilton, it's going to outlive us. It's going to be bigger than us, and it's going to reach a whole lot more starfish by what we do.
I 100% agree. Bob, you're one of the best men I know. Appreciate you more than you know. I got to give. So you said early on that you were too short to make the team, that you got cut from the team. You kept up with it and your basketball team. I just got a text from our good buddy, Todd Fincher. Todd just sent me a text. You went on to get a scholarship at Southern Indiana to play basketball. So not only did you make the team, you became a star at Southern Indiana. And Todd just shot me a text of the career rebounding leaders for Southern Indiana. And you, my friend, are still in the top 10 career rebounders of Southern Indiana history, even after all of these years. Man, that talk about success in every avenue of life that you've been on. So I had to share that update, because you just never know where life is going, and I wanted to share that for the team as well. Bob, thank you so much, man.
Hey,
Thank you for giving us the chance. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for teaching me humility in a real way early in my career that really has always reminded me about what great leaders do. And I wouldn't be where I am without you, my friend. So thank you. Tell Deborah hi for us. Hope you have a great weekend for sure.
We'll do that.
I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend this weekend. Enjoy your family, and look forward to talking with everybody on Monday. We'll talk to you soon. God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.